So originally, most blockhouses were built with a trapdoor to get to the second floor. We just came up the stairs. Sometimes they did have stairs. They'd be probably narrower and steeper. That way, if you were up here and you had to defend the stairway, it was a lot easier to do that. Trapdoors worked really well because you can pull the ladder up through it, shut it, latch it, and you just, you know, you're relatively safe up in here, I guess, unless they smoke you out.
What year was this map?
That map is circa 1750. Parts of it toward the east, toward the Hudson and Mohawk, are probably been added to and are a little bit later. But Clyde is right here.
Okay.
And that is the river. And then here's Lyons, the Gennargo Creek, and the Canandaigua outlet to Canandaigua Lake. You can see there's the bay. It's hard to read on there, but it's Bay of Sodoms, which was also a name that applied to this location. And the trail crossed right there and went to...
Get a close-up of that, yeah.
Yeah, of course it glares with the
Yeah.
light,
Well,
but oh well. Get an idea. You've got a nice school map here. 1750, you said?
1750, yeah.
Wow.
And there's, these were found down at the fort site. The horseshoe was, and this square nail, which is actually, which may be from the stockade. It's kind of hard to say. Fort sites very often have butchered animal bones from the garrison and the detachment. Whether they're actually that age or not, we don't know.
it's a pretty good size bone.
Yeah, probably cow. So here's the military tract. Again, one is here. The dividing line, whether you knew it or not, the dividing line between New York and Massachusetts was the preemption line. Lyons was in Massachusetts for a short time until they sorted it out after the Revolutionary War. All had something to do with the land grants that went. And this was called the Canandaigua Creek up until about 1817.
Where would we have our family's lot number, but I don't remember what it was. But where
Yeah,
would
the lot
Shepherd's
numbers-
Corners be?
Shepherd's Corners, let me think, would be up in
Northeast
here.
of
Yeah, so it's
Village.
probably going to be maybe 36,
They
lot
owned-
36
they
or something
owned
like that.
What is now all the way over to 31, so
Mhm.
they owned all of that there. And I guess there is a creek there. Where is the Clyde River on here?
Canandaigua Creek is the Clyde River.
Oh.
They called it actually it was originally the Canandaigua Outlet, Canandaigua
Yeah,
Creek,
yeah.
Mud Creek, sometimes called the Gennargo.
The circuit of this map was when?
This is I want to say this is about, if I had to say, it'd be the 1790s.
Revolutionary period then.
Yeah, a little after,
A little after,
maybe
yeah.
20 years later, but still early settlement period. Yeah.
When they start dividing things up for the military,
Mhm.
the Revolutionary War.
What's really neat, and if you know the lot number of your ancestors,
I could
Um,
find it.
the New York State Archives has a digitized map. I think there's two of them actually, but I know there's at least one of the town of Galen from the surveys in about 1794 or 96, and you can see it right online. You can cut, I guess, cut the image or screenshot the image, but it has all the lots on there and everything. It shows the river going through. The river looks kind of strange like this because of the fact that they really only surveyed the boundaries of the lots. So they only noted where the river was going into the lot and where it was coming out of the lot. And there's a lot of twists and turns in it. So it winds up looking a lot straighter on here than it is in reality. The older maps like that one are actually more accurate, which is strange. And this is what the fort would have, what we believe it looked like at the time of the French and Indian War, about 1760.
So, well, we're looking at that.
Yep, it'd be this more or less, down by the river. This was the design they were building the what they called Indian forts.
About,
At that time for the
what's the
Iroquois.
diameter of that?
About 200 by 100
You talking feet or yards?
Feet.
Feet.
Yep.
200. So it's not even 100 yards.
Right.
But smaller than a football field.
Yes. And
I'm trying to get,
Yep.
put it in.
small, a little smaller than a football field.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time you got to the outer edges of the
How many
soldiers,
men? Yeah.
you would have had about 20. In fact, right behind you, there's a cantonment map, they call it, from 1766 and 67, showing detachment number 1 at this location. And it's 20 men of the 46th Regiment, plus a lieutenant. And that would make sense if they had one 24-foot square blockhouse set up as the barracks, because they were designed at that time at that size for about 20 men.
You're saying this setup was here.
Mhm.
In what year?
1760.
Right. And that over there is the blockhouse we're in the replica of now?
Right.
And what was that one over there?
That would have been another blockhouse built
Oh.
as a barracks at that time.
Right.
None of this is actually, you have never found any.
No,
Relics or
this is
evidence.
based on the orders that were issued for building these forts, and the fact that the fort built in Geneva has this exact ground plan.
Where is the fort in Geneva?
Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but you know where the experimental station is?
Yes.
So it's just to the west, behind that Castle Road Mini Mart, and down to Castle Creek.
Well, then, was there Indian burial ground there? They claimed there.
There's a mound, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And there was an Iroquois village here too. So
Where was that at?
we're not exactly sure if it was right around the fort. There's no evidence that it was. We believe it was actually on the south side of the river, and there was a good candidate was remains of a village found by the early settlers here over near the Catholic cemetery.
Because it was raised out by Gantz's behind there.
On Maringo Road.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's our.
Which would almost make sense if you were trying to defend from a potential French attack, that you'd be on this side of the river with your, settlement.
I'm surprised.
But there was probably some in and around it as well.
Okay.
They tended to spread out along both sides of the rivers and stuff, so.
Yeah, that makes sense over there because of near the river.
Mhm.
You go much farther, you're away from the river.
Right. But we don't know because nobody's ever dated those sites, so we really can't be sure. But we do know there's an 18th century description that says Sodoms was a settlement of Iroquois Indians where the English have a fort and establishment between Lake Ontario and the River Seneca, which is exactly where this would be. So, and it shows on the maps, so exactly where Clyde is. So. That's the old blockhouse that they called this place in 1817. It's just known as Blockhouse.
That was the name of the fort.
Yeah, well, it never had an official name as best I can tell. Mainly because it was built just as a trading post and as what they called an Indian fort, which was designed for protecting their Iroquois allies of the English.
This was a French?
English.
English?
Yeah.
A lot of history here that nobody, until you start to document or bring all together.
Yeah, nobody really, frankly, paid much attention or did any more work on it since Group's historical souvenir of Clyde in 1905 or whenever it was. He had done some research. He dug up the 1722 information and all of that. And then unfortunately, there was the great fire at the state capitol in 1911, destroyed a lot of our records. So digging through this stuff is not easy because a lot of it's gone. And a lot of the manuscripts that might contain information were destroyed, and all you've got is the calendar of manuscripts that gives you just a synopsis of what's in the letter, but not all the details. And that's some of those I'm trying to track down now to see, where they might lead.
Copies or something.
Yeah. And not everything's digitized, so what you find on the internet's only 10% of what's really out there.
Yeah. And Lions, of course, you are Lions. Now, where's Lions play into this?
Well, Lions, there was some Native American settlements around there at some point. Exactly what time they were, I couldn't tell you. I do know that in the period of early settlement, there was some Iroquois living in Lyons. I've been told there were some right along William Street, and then along Black Brook at another time too. I've read that in a couple of the old books. So it's kind of interesting, but that's a little bit later period than this, but, well, kind of the latter part of the same period. But, it was certainly a highway, a junction of highways.
Oh, yeah.
So, all of this was pretty wilderness area. This was no big settlement until really Erie Canal era.
But the Indian population at that time was pretty heavy around here?
Here in Wayne County, not so much.
No.
Ontario County, yeah.
Geneva was
Geneva was, for a time, the capital of the Senecas. Yeah, it was called Canada-Saga. The first settlers called it that too. I don't know exactly how many were living there, say at the time of the Revolution, but things got all messed up for the Iroquois during the Revolutionary War and the Sullivan Expedition.
Sodas, I understand sodas, like that was a seasonal, they traveled up there for the summer?
Yeah, they would be up there doing hunting and fishing. Probably the wetlands around here were good hunting areas. I know from descriptions I've read from the middle to late 1600s that the Europeans, the French in particular, marveled at like the Montezuma wetlands and some of that area and the Cayuga territory as far as numbers of deer and everything else. They were just amazed. And they would hunt up into the Montezuma.
Well, there's a lot of, I know, Indian artifacts found around the Montezuma, which, so there must have been a heavy concentration of Indians back in the day.
Yeah, and some of that goes back a long, long time.
Right.
But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Savannah and Galen. I mean, just in doing this stuff, I've learned of other sites in Galen that most people don't know about. People tell me about, oh yeah, fire pits at this place, and there's, this and that. It's amazing how much.
Out on my grandfather's farm, they used to find a lot of arrowheads when they were plowing and stuff. Back in when they plowed forces and stuff, like they were walking behind them and then turning it up. Arrowheads.
I've heard a lot of those stories.
Yeah.
So a little blurb over here about Major Frederick Dzang. He was like the father of Clyde. Also was kind of the father of the glass industry in America. He's also tried to start glass industry in Canada, which most people don't know. But he never actually lived here, but he died here in 1838. He's buried in the Maple Grove Cemetery. His son William went into business with the Clyde Glass Works, and his daughter lived here. But he was a Hessian mercenary during the Revolutionary War, a German mercenary. And he stayed in America, became an American citizen, married an American, and he was friends with Philip Schuyler, the Revolutionary War general. He was friends with Baron von Steuben, who helped train the American troops at Valley Forge. So he was well connected, and he bought up the land along the Clyde River here, knowing that canals were coming this way. This was around 1817, so right around the time that your ancestors were moving into town. He was buying up the land, was a big landowner. He owned the land at the Blockhouse, and the Blockhouse Park is on at a time. He also owned where our Central Park is downtown. And it passed to his son, and then his son gave it to the village in perpetuity. But anyway, this is our current interpretation of Clyde Blockhouse. Very good. It's been fun.